What is good, YouTube? Today we to start reacting to a video called Five Most Disturbing Home Security Camera Hackings. Alright, we're gonna get straight to that bitch.
On Oliver from his phone. January 20. On the evening of January 20, 2019, 29-year-old Arjun Sood and his wife Jessica put their 7-month-old son Oliver to bed in his nursery at their home in Lake Barrington, Illinois. What they didn't know was that someone else was already in the room with them. It was getting late and Arjun had work in the morning. Like many busy parents, Arjun had set up a Nest baby monitor to check in on Oliver from his phone without getting out of bed. The Nest thermostat was set to 72 so the room would stay comfortable through the night. Arjun had spent roughly $4,000 outfitting the house with Nest products over the years. 17 cameras placed throughout the home and around the exterior, with 2 smart thermostats and a full security system. He was an avid user of the technology and clearly trusted it enough to build much of his home security around it. But shortly after putting Oliver down, Arjun was standing in the hallway outside the nursery when he heard something from inside the room. It sounded like a deep, male voice speaking directly to his son through the camera's speaker. He rushed into the room, but no one was there. He thought maybe it was just an interference with the baby monitor. Stuff like this isn't new, and many electronic devices can pick up distortion of some kind. Still, to be safe, they brought Oliver downstairs. On the way down, Jessica noticed he was extremely distressed and sweating through his clothes, and when she glanced at the thermostat, the temperature had been cranked up to a dangerous 90 degrees. But before they could process what was happening, the voice came back. This time it was coming through a different Nest camera downstairs in the living area, and it was speaking directly to them. The voice was cursing, hurling racial slurs, and taunting them in real time as it watched them through the live feed. When Arjun looked directly at the lens, the voice asked, "Why are you looking at me? I see you watching me." At that point, Arjun realized someone had hacked into their Nest account, which he used to control every camera, thermostat, and every inch of the security system he had spent thousands of dollars building to protect his family. Arjun's first instinct was to yell back at the camera, but he composed himself and started questioning the intruder through the two-way audio.
If I hear that shit in the camera, then they know exactly where I live.
I know you're here. Who are you?
So I'm not gonna lie.
He tried to extract information on the hacker's whereabouts, asking who they were and which country they were from.
They know where you live.
Who is this? Are you just sitting at your computer there? Into my account? Where are you? Which country?
The hacker went quiet without identifying himself or explaining why he had done any of it.
Yeah, who are you? Come on, be a man. Speak up. Nothing? Nothing to say?
The couple disconnected their interior camera in the house and called both the police and Nest customer support. Nest responded by putting the blame on Arjun. They told him the hack had happened because he had reused a password from another site that had been breached, and because he hadn't enabled two-factor authentication, a feature Arjun didn't even know existed.
If they're hacking your camera, then I'm pretty sure they know where you live, bro. I don't know.
Reusing passwords is a real security risk, and two-factor authentication probably would have stopped this. But digging deeper into this, I found the Sood family weren't the only victims attacked through Nest devices. After researching similar incidents, a dozen more cases just as chilling came up. For example, on the same day the Soods were dealing with their hacker, January 20, 2019, a family in Orinda, California had a fake ballistic missile attack warning come blasting through their Nest camera, telling them 3 nuclear missiles were heading for Los Angeles, Chicago, and Ohio.
It came on like the emergency sounds of an Amber Alert, say, and then a man's voice announced that North Korea had launched 3 intercontinental ballistic missiles toward the United States.
Their young son hid under the living room rug thinking the country was under attack. And about a month earlier, on December 17, 2018, parents in Houston woke to the haunting sound of a stranger's voice coming from their 4-month-old's nursery, threatening to kidnap their son and ordering them to turn off the bedroom lights.
Yo.
Turned that camera on and told us, said, turn off the light, and then said, I'm going to kidnap your baby. I'm in your baby's room.
In every single case, Nest responded by blaming the customers. So why did this keep happening? You see, Nest had quietly added two-factor authentication back in 2017 and barely told anyone. Arjun didn't even know the feature existed because Nest never told him. It took until May 2020, well over a year after all of this happened, for the company to finally make it mandatory. Which feels like a quiet admission that leaving the security entirely up to the customer was never the right call. But for Arjun, the scariest part wasn't about how the hacker got in. It was how Nest's cameras gave no real warning when someone else was watching the feed. A handful of them had a small blue light, but it only switched on when the intruder started talking. A hacker could watch and listen for hours, and the family would never know. The only reason the Suds knew they'd been compromised was because the hacker chose to speak. In the end, the hacker was never identified, and no arrest was ever made.
Of course.
On the afternoon of April
course he wasn't
23,
caught.
2020, Shauna Dottie received a phone call from her home security company, ADT. They had called to tell her that for the last 6 years, every dollar she had paid them to keep her family safe had done the exact opposite. Back in 2014, Shauna and her husband Randy were living with their young son in the suburbs of the Dallas-Fort Worth area and wanted the peace of mind to keep an eye on the house from anywhere. ADT's Pulse system, with indoor cameras, motion alerts, and a cell phone app, sounded like exactly what they were after. A few weeks after they placed the order, a technician from ADT showed up at their front door. He looked at the layout and mounted a wide-angle indoor camera that covered most of the ground floor, the family room, the entryway, the dining area, and the staircase. The lens also reached into the master bedroom and the corner of the bathroom. He watched Shauna through the app on her phone. Before he left, he told her he needed to add his own email to the account, only briefly to check if the connection was working. For the next 6 years, the system worked exactly the way it was supposed to, and the Dotties had no reason to think about that afternoon again. Until they received that call from ADT on April 23, 2020. The employee calling told Shauna that the technician who had installed her camera back in 2014 had granted himself remote access to it on the installing day, and that access was never removed. He had been using it to view footage from inside the Dotties' home ever since. When Shauna asked what he had been seeing, the employee had no answers. They couldn't name him and wouldn't say how many times he had logged in.
7 hours is a long time, but we're talking 7 years. You don't know what to think. So you find yourself just trying to go back, like, okay, what were we doing during this time?
Unfortunately, the Dotties weren't the only family getting the ADT call. They were one of more than 200 plus. A few weeks earlier, another ADT customer in the Dallas-Fort Worth area was going through their Pulse account settings when they noticed an email attached to it that didn't belong to anyone in the house. Naturally, they called ADT to ask what it was doing there. When the company looked into it, they found that the same email was attached to 220 separate customer accounts across the metropolitan area. And every one of those systems had been installed or serviced by the same technician at some point. Which raised the obvious question. How does one technician end up signed into 220 homes? The answer was buried in ADT's own software. Technicians are allowed to temporarily attach their personal email to a customer's account during install. It's a diagnostic feature meant to verify the camera feed before they leave. So, every time he serviced or installed a system, he either gave the same diagnostic excuse or didn't bother explaining at all. But he never removed his email, so the Pulse app on his personal phone kept him signed in as a co-owner of these homes. Now, some could argue this was just sloppy work, a tech forgetting to clean up after himself. Once or twice, sure, but more than 200 times is not a coincidence. So how did this slip past ADT for so long? It turned out ADT didn't have any system in place to catch such a massive breach of privacy. The company never alerted its customers and didn't even have an automated check flagging the same email showing up on dozens of accounts, which meant he could keep logging in whenever he wanted. In April 2016, the same technician installed a system at the home of a couple with 2 young daughters. The camera covered the living room and the kitchen. Court records would later show he logged into that account 322 times. At another household, one where 5 children under the age of 18 lived, he logged in 361 times. In September 2017, he set up a Pulse system for the Preddy family. Their teenage daughter Alexia wasn't comfortable with indoor cameras, and she told her mother this on the day of the installation. But the ADT technician assured them that the system was perfectly safe. Years later, when the full scope of the breach came to light, ADT found that he had accessed the Preddy family's live footage almost 100 times during the years Alexia was still a teenager. Court filings would later show the wide-angle lens in its placement allowed him to view her.
Oh hell nah, bro. See, that right there, I'm getting a new one. Bro, I'm getting a new one after that, bro. I'm getting a new camera, bro. I don't know, bro. Cause that's actually fucking weird. How people just going hacking and shit and just gonna look at you, bro. Or do something, bro. Like, I don't know. People are weird, bro. I hate people like that.
Undressed, getting ready for bed, and during moments of physical intimacy. This technician was Telesforo Aviles. He was 35 years old, married, and the father of 5 children of his own. He'd been with ADT for
is this the
17
guy?
years, and by 2020 was working as a senior supervisor in the Dallas-Fort Worth region. On May 18, 2020, Shauna Dottie and Alexia Preddy each filed federal lawsuits against ADT, accusing the company of allowing Aviles to exploit its Pulse system and spy on customers through their own home cameras. Soon after, more lawsuits followed from other victims. In the federal case, Aviles admitted that he took note of households with women he found attractive and repeatedly targeted homes of young women and married couples with daughters. He would open the Pulse app on his personal phone, scroll through the list of homes attached to his email, and watch for live footage of any private moments. Across the 4.5 years covered by his federal plea agreement, prosecutors counted more than 9,600 unauthorized logins across roughly 200 accounts. That works out to 5 or 6 logins a day, every day, for over 4 years. Aviles pleaded guilty to computer fraud in January 2021 and was sentenced to 52 months in federal prison that June. ADT had revoked his access to all 220 accounts months earlier, but the only person who knew exactly what he had seen and in which homes was Aviles himself.
We got your face, bitch.
On the evening of September 30, 2017, a young Dutch woman named Rilana Hamer came home from the supermarket and started unpacking her groceries. She lived alone in a small house in Bremen, a quiet town in the eastern Netherlands, with her dog. Rilana had recently bought a small indoor security camera from her local discount store for around 35 euros. It was a Maxter ACT IPC01, a white plastic unit with a motorized base that could rotate across the room. She set up the camera on a shelf in her living room, figuring it would be easy to check on her dog throughout the day. The camera also had a built-in speaker, which let her talk to the dog even when she wasn't home. That evening, she was putting her groceries away when she heard a low, mechanical voice from the living room. When she went to look, she saw the camera rotating on its base, slowly turning back and forth on its own. Her phone was the only thing she used to control it, and that was on her bed in the next room. Figuring it was just an updating glitch, she went back to the kitchen. But a few minutes later, the sound came back. This time, the camera turned and pointed directly at her, and a man's voice came through the speaker. It said, "Bonjour, madam." Staying composed, Rilana asked who was there, but no one answered. To see if the voice would speak again, Rilana moved to the side and noticed that the camera was following her. That's when the voice came through again, this time saying, "Hello, madam. Is everything all right?" She immediately ran across the room and pulled the plug from the socket.
Is that her name?
Evening,
Bro,
a
he
friend
just said
came
her
over for
name.
dinner. Rilana told her what had happened,
Yo.
and the two of them decided to test the
Nah, I'm
camera
throwing that shit
again.
out.
They placed it back on
getting
the
a new
table
one.
and plugged it in as Rilana held her phone to record. It took less than a minute before the camera rotated on its own and found her again.
Travelers swear by this one
Bro.
trick.
That's
Mom.
She's been
That's
scrolling
weird
travel
as hell.
advice for hours.
That's
and
actually
it's got
weird, bro.
influencer brain.
Hashtag paid
Fuck that.
You gotta use Kayak. They compare hundreds of sites so you always get your trip right.
Kayak. Got that.
well, holy
right.
fuck!
back, fam.
Look how long this ad is. Yeah, it's gonna take a while. We'll be right back. And we're back. I'm not gonna lie, bro. That ad was too damn long, bro. I don't like when YouTube does that shit. Like, have that ad mad long, bro, for like 50 fucking seconds, bro. Are you serious? Shit. But yeah, let's continue the vid. Holy fuck.
What did you do?
Oh, he's moving around and shit. He's looking for her.
Soon, the voice came back.
What is that sound?
No! Get the out of my house now! Shut the up! Shut the up of my house now! Go away!
Hola, señorita.
Yeah, you.
Rilana posted the video on her Facebook account, where it went viral immediately. By the start of the next week, Dutch national news had picked up the story. When a tech journalist looked into Rilana's video days later, the explanation turned out to be disturbingly simple. Every camera the manufacturer shipped came with the same default password, 123, along with the device ID printed on a sticker underneath each unit. With just those two things and the free app, anyone in the world could connect to any of these cameras, watch the live feed, listen through the microphone, and talk through the speaker. Looking up the manual for this camera, it does mention that the default password is weak and recommends changing it before use. But nowhere in the app itself, the thing you actually interact with during setup, did it ever tell the users to do that. Few people read the full manual for a €35 camera from a discount store. You just download the app and start. So Rilana never knew that she had to change the password, and she was far from the only one. When the tech journalist tried connecting to other cameras from the same manufacturer, he got into 4 unsuspecting households within minutes, using nothing but the manual and the free app. Each one of those people, just like Rilana, had no idea anyone else was watching.
Wow.
In late 2010,
It's crazy because you
Ferial
don't
Nigel
know
woke
if
up
your
in the middle
camera's
of the
getting
night
hacked or
to
not.
heavy metal music
You really
playing at
don't know.
full volume through every speaker in her house. Confused and disoriented,
Wait, what did he say?
In late 2010, Ferial Nigel woke up in the middle of the night to heavy metal music playing at full volume through every speaker in her house.
Damn.
Confused and disoriented, she didn't know how it had turned on. And despite her trying, the volume level didn't go down,
speaker got hacked?
as if someone else was controlling the sound system. But there was no one home except her that night. Ferial was a Canadian fashion model who had spent most of her adult life around cameras. She had walked at the Berlin Film Festival in the mid-2000s and built a career where she was looked at on her own terms. By her late 30s, she was in a long-term relationship with a partner who lived in the States. He was, in her words, quietly controlling. According to her, he wouldn't just touch base with a text. He would call me on FaceTime and ask to say hi to the person I was with. At the time, she thought it was attentiveness, and she trusted him enough that she eventually moved into his home in the US. It was an impressively designed house with a high-tech smart home system which covered everything on the property, from lights, heating, blinds, security cameras, to the sound system. All of it ran through a single integrated platform her partner had set up. For someone who'd spent her career around cameras and production sets, living with so much technology around didn't feel unusual. But sometime during the 2010s, the relationship started to fall apart. Her partner moved to a different city, while Ferial stayed behind in his house, with his credentials still running everything around her. And that's when things started getting strange. She'd fall asleep at a normal hour and get jolted awake by sound blasting through every room.
You're asleep in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden, over the sound system, comes this blaring music that startles you awake. That's what would happen to me.
By the time she was on her feet, it would cut out just as suddenly as it had started, and she'd be left standing in a dark, silent house with no explanation. Soon enough, the lights started to behave in a similar way. She'd switch them off for bed, and they'd flick back on, sometimes flickering for several seconds before stabilizing. She would experience the same with her TVs, which would switch on by themselves and shut back off as soon as she got near the remote. At first, she tried telling herself it was just the system acting up. It was a big house, and every inch of it was wired with technology, so some level of glitching was expected.
So he's not just fucking with your
even
camera.
then, she couldn't help shake off the feeling that something was
and
off.
the lights?
In an interview with CBC's Marketplace, she said, "It's almost as if the house is haunted." Sadly, in a way, she was right. It started when she began receiving messages from her ex. They mentioned things he should have never known, like what she had been wearing earlier or who she had been with when she walked through the front door. He'd been using every piece of smart tech in the house to watch her and remind her he was still there. On more than one occasion, he'd also sent her direct threats.
Get out my fucking
stop manipulating the lights.
I'm not touching the lights.
What is wrong? Just can you please leave me alone? You're not supposed to call me. I'm not bothering you.
I am going after the dogs. And then I'm going after you.
For someone who had spent her entire life controlling exactly how and when she was seen, being watched in her own home without ever knowing felt like a different kind of violation entirely.
That was him the whole time?
He was able to monitor me, using our security surveillance cameras, even remotely, from thousands of miles away.
Ferial tried to shut the system down, but her partner configured everything from the start and held all the login credentials. Left with no other options, she contacted the local police and explained everything. Unfortunately, the response she received only deepened the sense that she had nowhere left to turn. The home wasn't in her name, and as far as the responding officers were concerned, that was where the matter ended. In the end, Ferial realized that her only real way out was to leave the home behind entirely. She gathered her dogs and made her way to a local women's shelter. On the 8th of August 2025, a woman named Brenda took her Ring doorbell camera off its mount and brought it inside her house to charge. It was something she did every few weeks. The camera ran on a battery, and recharging it was a routine part of owning one. But this time, she noticed something strange about the camera. The blue ring of light around the lens was on. On a Ring doorbell, that light only comes on when the camera is actively streaming, recording, or in the middle of a live two-way call with someone signed into the account. none of which should have been the case while the device was unmounted and sitting indoors. So Brenda picked it up to see what was going on, and that's when she started hearing a voice coming through the doorbell speaker.
A voice.
I see you.
The fuck?
I see you.
Oh.
Someone was speaking through the device in real
Oh,
time,
hell
and
no.
by the way they were laughing, it's clear that it wasn't
Imagine
someone who'd
them
accidentally
screaming,
connected
"I
to the wrong
see you."
camera. Whoever it was, they
Nigga,
were
that's
taking their
scary
time
as hell.
terrorizing Brenda. Brenda pulled out her phone and managed to record only some of the interaction, but the voice went silent within a few seconds, and the blue light switched off shortly after. She later posted the video on her TikTok account. The comment section was flooded with people who couldn't believe how easily someone could gain access to a Ring device, along with others
that's
sharing
tragic,
similar
bro. My bad,
experiences.
y'all.
One comment read, "I have cameras all over my house, and I have one in my bedroom. And a few days after I got them, I was sleeping
Why you
and
have
got
them in your
woken up by
room?
someone snoring through my camera. And it wasn't no one in
Oh.
my house because I didn't log into anyone else's phone yet because I just set them up." By now, the pattern should
I'm
sound
not gonna lie, I'm
familiar.
not putting my camera
Just
in my
like the
room.
Maxter cameras
gonna lie.
Rilana had set up in her living room,
I am
a
not putting my
doorbell
camera in my
camera is
room.
only as secure as the password
Fuck
protecting
no.
the account
That could be
behind it.
creepy as
A
hell.
weak or
You never know
reused
what a nigga can
password is
do.
often
You never
all
know,
it
like, if your
takes.
shit really
And
get
if you
hacked
look at every case in this video,
and
this exact
somebody's,
vulnerability
like,
keeps showing
just
up,
looking at you
regardless of the
through your
brand,
camera.
price, or how trusted the
Like,
company
bro.
is. So that's also what most likely happened here. Now, as I was researching this case, I found multiple people in the comments suggesting a different theory.
Bro, what do
They
you mean I
argued that
see
what
you? Like,
Brenda
bro,
heard
like,
wasn't a stalker at all, but signal
they
interference from
aren't
someone else's
watching.
baby monitor bleeding.
Like,
As
what?
researching this
I didn't
case,
read
I
that.
found multiple people
I would have screamed so loud into the camera. Girl, turn it over. Turn it over.
in the comments suggesting a different theory.
You better than me. I would be screaming into that thing so hard it would.
They argued that what Brenda heard
They aren't watching you. They aren't watching you, girl. It's in reference with somebody's baby monitor.
wasn't a stalker at all, but signal interference from someone else's baby monitor
Interference.
bleeding into
My
her
bad, y'all.
doorbell,
My
and that the
terrible
voice on the
reading.
audio sounded a lot like a dad talking to his baby. This theory sounds plausible at first. Wireless devices do cross signals all the time, and analog baby monitors are notorious for picking up audio from neighboring devices operating on similar radio frequencies. But Ring devices aren't analog based. They work by connecting to your home's Wi-Fi network and streaming audio and video through Ring's own encrypted servers. So any sound that comes through the doorbell speaker has to be sent through the Ring app first, by someone logged into the account. In other words, for a man's voice to come through Brenda's doorbell speaker clearly and in full conversation, someone had to be on the other end of the Ring app with full access to her device.
That's no, fuck that, bro. See, all I'm saying is, bro, just be careful. Just be careful what you're gonna have in your camera, bro. Hey, I don't know. It's fucked. It's weird. It's really weird, bro. I don't. Mm-mm. I'm not gonna lie, it is. But YouTube, that's it for today. Um, appreciate you for enjoying the video, watching the video and shit. I'ma head out. Make sure y'all watch my stream. I'm gonna be streaming today and stuff like that. I'm gonna see y'all tomorrow. Bye.